want to play the tune the same way as you would sing it, or play it
Yeah.
like you'd sing it, let's say. But
Hmm.
obviously, that's completely not a thing, right? The only thing you can play as if you're singing it is your own voice, because
Yeah.
singing is singing and it has its own unique set of constraints and abilities and expressive knobs. You remember the knobs, Jim?
I never forget the
I
knobs.
never forget a knob. Oh dear. Okay, where were we? Morning, Jim.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm going to put you in a world of hurt today.
That's why I come here, actually.
Yeah.
That's the main reason I come.
You've carefully prepared notes on this, and I'm going to take that preparation and I'm going to punish you for it.
He's gonna crumple it all up and throw it away, huh?
Yep. I think so. I don't know. Because you asked me if I wanted to review the talking points before the show, and I declined.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be a world of pain and it'll be improv. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Maybe a lot of us who are listening and participating in this conversation play bagpipes and bagpipes only, and that's totally cool if that's the case. But if some of us have ever tried any other instrument, or if we're aware of other instruments existing in the world, if we've ever heard any other instrument, we have maybe an idea of some of the things that bagpipes don't do that other instruments do. And I'm thinking things like being able to stop the sound once it starts, and maybe more importantly, bigger than that, get louder and quieter. Have those options. Whom
Yeah.
among us has not had the experience of going to a gig or a rehearsal for a gig or anything like that, even playing in your backyard and having somebody say, could you turn that down a little?
Can you play that a little quieter?
Yeah. Or could you fade out at that point? Or here's where we want you to fade in, and just being like, not an option.
Yeah. Sometimes you get the pushback, especially nowadays,
Mm.
having done the Inverary Chanter stop thing. People are like, you could stop and start your pipes.
Yeah,
And it's-
thanks a lot, Inverary. That was cool,
Yeah.
but dang it.
But also, I can't describe the relief I feel, and I think the feeling's mutual that we don't do that anymore. It was just an extremely harrowing experience. And yeah, can you do it? Yeah. Did we decide to do it? Yeah, but it was a nightmare. I might be remembering incorrectly, but at least one out of the two worlds where we played that, like the final Chanter stop before we went on, it was not a complete Chanter stop.
What you might call a rolling stop.
Yeah. What we're talking about is common performance ready capability of the instrument. That's something reasonable, and that's a feature of the instrument, not like a party trick.
Yeah, I think that's an important point you bring up right there, Andrew, that if we can lean into the things that are features of the instrument and do them well, those things are going to work great. Party tricks are fun when it's time for a party trick, but if we try to make the instrument be something it isn't, it doesn't always go so great.
I think that all instruments are heavily restricted in certain ways, right? And that's what makes them unique and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I like a few times when I've talked to artists over on the Droning On podcast, it's come up more than once when really accomplished pipers will talk about how precisely the restrictions or the limits that are put up actually can be big time fuel for creativity.
Absolutely. And I would say that that's by definition the case. Let me give you an example. The piano is like a great instrument, right? Limitless. Limitless, amazing. But it's not, right? So,
Right.
for example, the bagpipes, we cannot stop and start our instrument as we're playing, right? But that's not just a drawback, it's also a huge feature. For example, try to play a piano continuously without stopping. Not going to happen. And I get it, right? There might be some party tricks, alluding to our earlier thing, where you could get a piano continue to sound forever or something, but that's not like a primary feature of the instrument at all. So the piano might be looking at the bagpipes thinking, man, that's actually pretty cool. I'd love to be able to play permanently. That sounds like something cool. And there's all sorts of examples like that if you look around. Playing drums is pretty cool, but there you're not going to be able to play even 9 notes, right? It's all unpitched and so on. So the bagpipe there's the pros and cons, and what it is. And then, like you said, the creativity is going to flow from what the capabilities and the restrictions of that particular situation are.
Yeah, I was surprised and in a way, I almost want to say flattered. I don't know if that's the right word, like flattered on behalf of the bagpipe. When I was talking to an accordion player once, really accomplished piano and accordion player, Jeremiah McLean, who plays with Timothy Cummings quite a bit. And he was talking about how envious he is as an accordion player of the sort of bendy ability of the bagpipes. His take on it being, my reeds are all fixed. Each one plays only one note. I can't like slide between notes. I can't kind of like fight into a half note. There's like a natural feeling that comes from the bagpipes that I don't have access to. And
Yes.
for me personally, I'm used to looking at the accordion and being like, look at all those buttons. They got so many options. I'm so
Yeah.
envious of that, you know? So it was
How
kind of
cool
fun
is
to
that?
see that flip around. Yeah.
We look at other instruments, and I get it, right? Like you can get me on the technicalities here, but the bagpipe only plays one note at a time, sequentially. Now you got the drones. I got it. Internet, I got it. Feel free to comment in there letting us know that turns out the drones are technically notes. I got it. I got you. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, the bagpipe plays one note at a time, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you get. And we look at other instruments and we say, man, they can play. The accordion, you can play like chords and melody all at the same
All at
time.
the
That's
same time.
amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, it totally is amazing, but it totally changes things. For example, on none of those instruments do you see the precision and attention to detail and the repertoire of embellishment, right? On none of
Sure,
those
yeah,
instruments.
yeah.
You see some basic embellishments, but you got so many other things going on. That particular branch of creativity never formed. And then you get famous musicians looking at our sheet music saying, wow, how could you guys possibly read that? That's incredible.
Either wow or yuck. Get that away
Yeah.
from me.
Or
One or
like,
the other.
holy crap, what is that? And but all instruments are going to be like that in the sense that its particular capabilities lead to its particular contribution to different types of creative ideas. And by the way, like one of the super awesome bits is that when a piano player and a guitar player get together, there's going to be that cross-pollination of ideas, and you might discover something you could do on the piano because you played with the guitarist. So anyway, what are we talking about today, Jim?
There's this course. It's an older one, and I'm going to toss out here, Andrew, that if you tear it apart, that just proves that the Piper's Dojo is a forward-thinking institution that's always evolving, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this course, here's what we're talking about. I think this is what we're talking about.
The title of the course is something along the lines of, there's only two things that you need to do to get 98% of bagpipe expression in the bag.
That's right. Yeah. The two things that you do to get bagpipe expression to happen. So it's like expression. What is that? And at the beginning of the course describing that, what we have here is this part that says, the element of a musical performance that goes beyond simply playing different notes. That's expression. Expression
Who says that? I said that?
I'm assuming so. Whoever
Okay.
wrote this. Expression allows a performer to put feeling or emotion into the music.
Yeah. You want to pause there? Do we still think that? This course must have been made over 10 years ago.
I didn't notice a date stamp, but I'd believe you.
Yeah. This must have been made over 10 years ago for sure. So do we still think that? So is expression what happens after we take into consideration that we're just playing the notes? Is expression...
I mean, if somebody said that to me right now, my knee-jerk reaction would be like, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I think at a deep level, okay, now, because I think there's two types of expression. There's a universal kind, and then there's the bagpipey kind. You know what I'm saying? Like bagpipe expression is ironically quantified, and at least in the way many people think about it. But let's start with the universal sense. I feel like expression is going to be your own unique contribution to the piece of music or to the piece of art that you're doing. For
Yeah,
example,
I like that.
For example, if I do a paint by numbers Van Gogh, right, and I just paint in the numbers, and that's all I do, that would be just a paint by numbers, and there wouldn't be anything particularly interesting about it besides, for me, perhaps the process of going through and you have something that's nice to look at the end. But if I just did a paint by numbers, the result would not be expressive.
Yeah, I think I see where you're going. So then maybe if instead of just using exactly the tubes of paint that came with that set, if you went, you know what, I want a little bit of red in that yellow, and you started mixing your own color a bit, that's a little bit of your own expression.
Exactly. So like expression is everything that I'm going to uniquely contribute to whatever I'm pursuing, right? By the way, this could happen in sports, right? Or it could happen in your day job, or it could happen when you mow the lawn, right? It doesn't just have to be like music or art or whatever. Or the other one, it would be like, let's do a Halloween version of this Monet with the lily pads. So I'm just going to use blacks and oranges and grays and yellows. And that would be a decision that, where I'm taking what's supposed to happen, for lack of a better way of putting it. I'm taking what's supposed to happen and I'm putting my own unique spin on it. Like for me, that's what expression really is.
Okay, I like that definition a lot. That's making a lot of sense to me. It's like the unique fingerprint of the person who's doing it that time. It's what makes this iteration of the thing unique.
Now, probably on the deep philosophic level, it's impossible to do anything without expressing it, probably, because we're all like explaining machines, and it's impossible for somebody to say something and to not be interpreted in a unique way by you. I don't think
Sure.
that's possible. But anyway, so that's my basic thinking about expression. And then bagpipe expression can seem to be different at times, but I actually think it should be the same, and it is. So real bagpipe expression is the same thing, right? Let's take a bagpipe tune, right? Expression is going to be what you are uniquely bringing to the table in the tune.
So I guess then that at least the question that first comes to my mind then is like, what are my tools to accomplish that?
Correct.
Maybe that's the thing that's different. Maybe the most obvious thing that's different from expressing on bagpipe versus some other musical instrument. I'm thinking about like my daughter is at an exciting point in her piano playing journey, speaking of the piano, where she has discovered the sustain pedal.
Love it.
And so she's playing around with that a lot.
I never turn it off.
Yeah, just put your foot down and don't pick it up.
Pedal to the metal.
Yeah, so she's figuring that out right now. And at the same time, her piano teacher has been teaching her, like up until now, she's been playing block chords. Like just, this is the chord, here's the triad for the chord. And now she's learning that she can do different patterns where maybe you go like bottom note, top two notes together. Or you like break it up entirely and arpeggiate it, stuff like that.
Yes.
So these two things are coming together to where familiar songs that she's been playing for 2 or 3 years now, she's going back and going, oh, what if I add the pedal to this? You
nice.
know?
That's
and
expression.
There's a lot of expression coming there. But I'm like, I don't have a sustain pedal for my bagpipes. So what do I have instead? What's my vehicle for expressing here?
Yeah. The big answer to that question is anything on your instrument that you can change or tweak is a potential tool of expression. Anything.
So that could be like every hole, every note on there, everything
exactly.
about it.
What happens if I play lock inside with the F and the C taped down a full semitone?
It sounds spooky.
Yeah, but like that's a potential
cool.
thing.
I like it.
Any note on the chanter read itself, the blowing pressure we all know is very tweakable.
Yeah.
Right? So you could change that.
It sure is.
Yep.
Sometimes I wish it weren't.
The tuning of the drones is very tweakable. What else we got? Combinations of grace notes, obviously very tweakable. Combination of notes, very tweakable. Right? And then, but you might also be pointing to the fact that if I want to swell the volume of a note.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if I was singing, I would definitely do. Like that C right there when I sang just the first key note of Green Hills there. Yeah, Green Hills. I swelled the volume of that note. I did it without even really thinking about it. But I can't do that on the pipes, can I?
No, and I'm so glad you used that example, Andrew, because that's a thing that has been popping out to me since I was a 14-year-old kid learning on the practice chanter, that my instructor would sing a thing, and it would be like, there'd be swelling, and there'd be these like singable expression things in there, and then I'd pick up my chanter, and I'd go beep, 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 and I just felt like, I want to play bagpipes, obviously, but also like, that was really beautiful. And then what I'm doing to try to, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem as nice in a way.
And it's not, and you'll never find an instrument that is, for example. I'm pretty sure I'm not a pianist.
I say that carefully.
I might be a closely related group of syllables, but I'm not a pianist. But I don't think you can swell the volume on a piano either.
Oh, good point. Yeah. You got to pick your volume from the beginning of the note. You can't build it up later. Yeah.
And you do hear that a lot. As a matter of fact, I teach it religiously. You want to play the tune the same way as you would sing it, or play it like you'd sing it, let's say. But obviously, that's completely not a thing, right? The only thing you can play as if you're singing it is your own voice, because singing is singing, and it has its own unique set of constraints and abilities and expressive knobs. You remember the knobs, Jim?
I never forget the knobs.
I never forget a knob. Oh dear. Okay, where were we?
I've got my intro.
I'm all flustered.
There's my intro for the episode right there. That's going to pull them in.
Oh God. Where were we?
The expression knobs on singing, there's lots of them, and they seem to come so naturally.
Yep.
But then it's actually, Andrew, I've heard this before, and I don't know if it's necessarily accurate. I wonder if you've heard it as well, that like how much the general populace likes the sound of an instrument can be found by just finding how close that instrument is to sounding like a human voice.
Yes.
And so violins are very popular because they sound almost like a person singing. And it makes it seem like, oh, are we all just chasing singing? Is that what we're doing then with all instruments?
Oh, I certainly think there's an appeal to singing. It's probably if not the original instrument. It's probably one of the originals. And we definitely relate to that probably instinctually. The shimmer that some pipers do when they're playing a slow air or a pibroch, another expressive device, which I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I get it accidentally, maybe when I'm just getting tired or something. But sometimes you hear that where they're managing to shimmer the note. Are they doing it with blowing control or arm control? Not quite sure. I've never really thought that much about it.
Or a little bit of finger. A little bit of finger could do it for you too.
Yeah, but too much finger and it would become something different, maybe.
Yes, that's right. The shimmer is just really light. You can get the wah wah pretty heavy if you want to go heavier on it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that pibrocky shimmer that some people get, that's another one. And then why is it such an appealing sound? It's because it sounds like a little bit of vibrato if you were singing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes it more like you're singing.
I think people overlook the unpleasant when they're appreciating music as well. There's a relationship between what doesn't sound great and what sounds great. And I feel like a well-expressed piece of art, Jim, to use the word of the day, is probably it's going to present a delicate balance of both of those things. You know, it's like if we always just play the perfect chords over and over again with no dissonance in there, I think you're overlooking key opportunities. Meanwhile, if you do too much, then it'll be too much. That is the risk of expression, right?
Yeah.
Is that you do too much and it's a net negative instead of a net positive.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was all dissonance all the time, I don't know, that might be appealing for some people, but it probably wouldn't be pleasant for most of us.
But also begs the question, which might not actually be something we should go into today, but it also begs the question, what's the relationship between the performer and the audience? There's different kinds of audiences and so on. But yeah, a lot of people play music that quote unquote pleases them, even though it completely alienates the audience.
Yeah.
And they don't care. And they say, I play music for me.
Yeah.
I don't care that you don't like it.
At the other end, you also hear stories about artists who have been doing their top
Sellouts.
5 songs for decades. Yeah. And they don't even like the music, but it makes them money or makes people clap or whatever and keep doing it.
We call that selling out, where we abandon our own expressive desires simply to impress the audience.
This does make me think, Andrew, of another thing that I've heard that I don't know if it's true because I've never done competitive eating seriously, but I've heard that competitive eating, it can be helpful to do a palate cleanse kind of thing, like the combination of ice cream and French fries, I think is a common one, where it's like you got something that's very sweet and fatty, and then you've got something that's salty and
fatty.
And fatty, you're right. But if you eat a bunch of ice cream and then just try to keep eating ice cream, you'll top out. Whereas if you eat a bunch of ice cream and then have a couple French fries, you can eat a lot more ice cream.
Yeah, I like that.
And I'm wondering if that's the nice chords versus dissonance, how you mix things in to have the right balance of
it's all about the
whatever
knobs.
Makes expression.
See the knobs episode for a discussion on some of that as well. But anyway, expression. So the chorus, by the way, Jim, we've discussed your first talking point in the first 24 minutes.
I've got so many more.
Yeah. Next.
The next one that I think is that I think is important. I'm trying to be judicious now and pick the best ones. Is in the coursework, it comes up at one point that expression is created on top of great fundamentals.
I have a thought on this.
Yeah, I thought maybe you would.
Trying to get the sun out of my face there, everyone. I have one box up in the window that can provide a shadow. Like, I'm not going to be good there, and it depends on our relationship to the equinox, Jim.
Yeah, fair enough. So if anybody wanted to do a little sleuthing to figure out what time of year and where in latitude and longitude Andrew Douglas is, there you go. All you need is the sun coming through a window.
You would also need the exact angle of my house relative to north and south and so on.
Someone will figure it out.
Yeah. Here's the thing I could say is it's September 9th right now, right? And I'm exactly facing the wall of my house. So you could actually, astute listener could figure out the exact orientation of my house relative to north and south, probably with that information.
Comment below if you know exactly how Andrew Douglas's house is facing.
Right now it's September 9th at 8:39.
How many degrees?
a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
That's all you got to know.
So, Andrew, the warning that you toss out here is don't be the piper who wants to improve expression while playing with countless crossing noises and not even a hint of basic rhythm.
Yeah, why would I say something like that? Like, crossing noises, man, like, that could be expression, man. Let's do a tune. Like, I love my crossing noises, man.
I think that's the thing, and I have fallen prey to this myself. It's tempting even now to me all the time, because, like, you could look at the way you're playing and be like, oh, I need to work on this and improve this, and that takes work and it sounds difficult. But but I'd rather be really good right now. One way to be really good right now is to say whatever I do is actually artistic choices.
Absolutely, man. And
And
the judges
maybe
are
that's
just the
fair.
man. The
That's right. The
judges are just
judges
the
aren't,
man
they're not
keeping you
enlightened enough.
down.
They don't get it.
Yeah. So a crossing noise it's a byproduct of a lack of control. And then control is an essential element of expression, right? Unless you meant to do it, it's usually not good. Sometimes accidental things happen that are accidentally good.
Sure. Yeah.
But if those accidents become habits and things that happen all the time, that's not really good anymore. That's just a lack of control, right? So like an accident might happen. This is true. Like you might accidentally get your drones in tune and have a great performance, right? But on the average, your inability to tune your drones that's not an artistic choice, right?
Yeah.
Like if I do my paint by numbers and I can't keep the paints in the lines, what does that indicate? Is that expression, or is that just me sucking at painting?
There's probably some kind of mechanics fundamental that hasn't been taken care of. Though you do say later on in the course, you say that it should go like this. There's 2 steps. Step 1, get the fundamentals down rock solid. And then step 2 is tweak those fundamentals to make it. And so maybe with the paint by numbers, it's like, well, step 1, figure out how to keep precise control of your paintbrush so that you can do things like stay in the lines. And then step 2 would be go out of the lines, but on purpose in the spots where you mean to.
Yeah. And by the way, some of those accidents, right? Like, for example, let's say you do have an accidental crossing noise, right? But every now and then an accident is like, whoa, that actually sounded pretty sweet.
And then you can do it on purpose where you want to, and it becomes part of your like palette of tools for expression.
Right. Countless times I've almost made a mistake. And then I realized, hey, that's actually kind of cool. Let's try doing that on purpose next time and playing around with that a little bit as a means of creativity. Like I'm all for that.
Yeah.
By the way, that happens all the time when you're writing harmonies for tunes.
Like a note that you didn't think should work and then, actually it works.
Or you think it'll have an effect and it has a completely different effect, but then you decide to keep it because it actually sounds pretty sweet. But it was an accident. And if you just made accidents all the time when you're harmony writing, the result's not going to be good. But the occasional one can be great. I don't know. Food for thought.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. And it occurs to me too that like your ability to discern between, oh, that accident was cool versus, oops, that was an accident, I better do something else, is also that's relying on your having already mastered at least to some degree, the fundamentals of melody and harmony in that example.
Yeah. You think about when you're writing harmony as well, you go from having a limited set of possibilities to having an almost unlimited set, right? So the expression, like the risks, what would you call it? The risks and the opportunities and so on when you're writing harmonies, right? That's a vastly expanded tapestry of possibilities. That makes it a very difficult thing to do. It's like if you're going to compose for the bagpipe, right? Composing a basic bagpipe melody is much easier than composing a basic piano melody. Now, I'm talking about basics, right? Because it's just such a narrow set. It's 9 notes instead of 62 or whatever a piano is.
Whole piano. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, Andrew, the course, and I wonder if this is the point at which you would maybe disagree with your past self or something, because the course from here moves into some specifics for ways of achieving expression on the bagpipes, which are basically timing. That's basically what it comes down to.
That's right.
And does that remain the case in your thinking, or do you think your thinking has evolved a bit where it's like, oh, that's still the case, but I would say it in a different way now?
Well, we talk a lot about ALAP, ASAP in this course, right?
Yes. And
Like
there are a couple really well written like essays from Dojo members in this. Like I wouldn't want to say that those aren't well written. They're very well put.
Yeah. ALAP, ASAP is one of the things I think the Dojo is most famous for bringing about. Although I don't know I think the way that we talked about it was new, but obviously pipers have been doing it and it's what pipers do. But we're talking about how when you see a dotted note, in many cases, we're going to play that note much longer than what it mathematically indicates on the page.
Yeah.
And ALAP ASAP is the idea that we're going to take that dotted note and we're not going to play it 3/4 of a beat, let's say. Instead, we're going to actually take that note and we're going to play it as long as possible.
That's right? The ALAP, as long as
possible. That's right. And then the short note would then be played as short as possible. And there's some details in there, right? If you actually played a note as short as possible, it would be crap. So it's actually as short as musically reasonable or something. It's probably more what it is.
Mm.
But we would take most of those dot cut rhythms, the ones that we see on the page, and we would be stretching those dotted notes much longer than that.
Yeah, I remember encountering this when I was first learning bagpipes, having my instructors tell me like, okay, yeah, that is a dotted quarter note, but we're going to give it more than 3 beats. And I'm being like, but how? That doesn't add up. And like the way you do that is you take away from the next quarter note or the eighth note at the end or whatever it is. So the measure will still come out okay, but we're going to put more emphasis on this than is actually written out.
Yeah. Yep. And that opens up a whole can of worms.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I feel accustomed to it now, but that was weird and hard for me at first. That's for sure.
And being accustomed to it can cause, I often wonder, and I now actually subscribe to the idea that all those things that you've gotten used to, maybe not you, Jim.
Oh, that's fair. Good. Yeah. Probably.
But all those things that we've gotten used to, all these special bagpiping things, it's actually clouded our vision and made it so we just generally aren't very good at rhythm now. We're missing the forest for the trees. It's one of the ways my thinking has definitely changed and evolved since putting together this course. However, I leave it in. ALAP ASAP is still a cool model for thinking about these things and starting to branch out a little bit. Certainly branching away from perfectly metrical interpretation of the music that we see on the page and stuff.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really liked that came out of one of these essays, and I should try to see who wrote it. This is the one from Mark Olson. I liked both of them quite a lot, but I thought Mark made it really clear. He points out, he says, most pipers tend to rush ahead of the beat, maybe especially the adult learners. And maybe I'm remembering wrong now. I think that it is him who goes on to talk about how, at least the feeling I was getting from this was like, in the ALAP ASAP equation, I would assume that the as short as possible portion of that is going to be the hard part because fast is hard. Mm-hmm. But he's pointing out what I think is actually way more descriptive of my personal experience. It's the as long as possible part of this that's the hardest, because I certainly tend to cut the parts that should be longer. I cut them short, and that's what ends up pushing the tempo faster and faster as I play, and I don't end up in the pocket for rhythm. And so I feel like maybe it's just me, but it seems unintuitive and therefore an important thing to point out, that when trying to achieve non-metrical timing for sake of expression, it's maybe the holding on part that is way more important than the cutting off quick part.
Sure. But also I think you're pointing out, I think this is the fatal flaw in ALAP ASAP from a methodological standpoint. It's what you're talking about is some complex
Fair enough.
Right? I just want to throw in a little swear word there. For effect only, I usually don't talk like that. I'm usually a total angel.
We know it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is complicated. So here I am sitting down with a beginner or even an intermediate, and I'm saying like, do that complex calculation thing Jim was just talking about, and do that every single time there's a dotted note. Yeah. That's going to go great. Yeah, you guys, you're going to do great. It's going to be wonderful.
I think a lot of us have gone through, that's how we learned, actually. Yeah, like it's way beyond, I'm not saying I've mastered it myself anyway, but like that's way beyond what I should have been trying to think about.
It reminds
15
me of
years old.
It reminds me of the old canister system, right? It's an extremely complex thing where we will be best served by instead focusing on the basics, right? I hardly ever talk about ALAP ASAP anymore, because it's implied in the basic sort of groove-based rhythmic development, right? That's like universally straightforward. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it's much easier to understand and say, oh, okay, these rhythms exist in a certain groove, right? Each tune has a certain type of groove, right? And so to learn and master the art of playing rhythms in that groove, it's like fairly straightforward. It's going to be difficult to do, but it's very easy to understand. Easier said than done. Sometimes people say, but this is way more easily said. And then from there, we can achieve the same thing I was talking about when we talked about ALAP ASAP all the time. You can achieve the same thing in a much more organic way, in a way that doesn't completely make you miss the point. Just like the canister system can make you miss the whole point, which it did for me. By the way, I'm speaking from experience here. When Jack Lee told me that sheepskin is going to teach me a lot about bagpipe tone, I remember feeling all offended, but he was, of course, absolutely correct. But the issue here is not that the canister system is bad. The issue is that as an intermediate young player, it was clouding the big picture, which is like the bagpipe has a much fuller potential to sound better. And the same is going to be true with these expression tweaks that we've baked in, right? I think ALAP ASAP is reflective of what we expect to hear. So it is baked in. It's not actually expression, right? It's prescribed that we should bend and stretch these notes at this stage. Yeah.
Oh, I see. And so do you think that the very nature of it becoming a prescribed thing takes away from it being expressive in the way that you described initially in this episode, that it's a personalized thing? If we start to prescribe it in a universal way, all pipers should play it this way, does that to some degree take away?
Definitely. Yes, exactly. So we call it expression, or at least that's what it was called as I was growing up, right? We call the stretching of the dotted notes and the snapping of the cut notes. We might call that expression, at least in the circles I grew up in. But it's not expression, right? It's a key fundamental of playing the bagpipes, which is derived from I think it's derived, by the way, people have disagreed with me in the past and they're just wrong. No, they might, I don't know. But I think it's derived from my conjecture here is it's derived from the fact that we can't change volumes and swell notes into other things that might be useful to provide dynamics and interest. And so instead we stretch the relationships between long and short notes, right? And that's our primary tool we used to call it simulate dynamics. We're simulating dynamics in the music by bending and stretching some of these notes.
I think it makes sense that we would naturally gravitate toward whatever tools we have in order to express things.
Wouldn't be much of an instrument if we didn't do that.
Yeah. It probably comes unconsciously. We probably end up just doing that naturally. And that also actually adds to what I'm curious about, something you said there, Andrew. You said that we're maybe moving toward, maybe it's still easier said than done, but you're moving toward a much easier way of saying it than used to be used. You say that there's a more organic way of finding this. And it makes me wonder if maybe these complicated ways of describing and prescribing timing methods for expression, maybe those are actually like, we observe these things, maybe they happen naturally, organically even. Then on the tail end of it, having it already started to happen, we observe it and go, how can I put this into words? And as we attempt to clumsily put it into words, we then start prescribing those words to new learners who really what they need to have is an experience of having this happen naturally. Because after it's happened, you can look back and go, oh, what was that? And so maybe part of the mistake we're making is trying to prescribe something that needs to be experienced before it can be discussed, in a way, maybe?
Totally, 100%. Yep. It's one of the problems with the ALAP ASAP concept, yeah. And then, by the way, once you decide to pay attention to that, what have you also decided to ignore? And the answer
something.
The answer to that question is I don't really know, but yeah, anytime you decide to focus on something, you're to ignore other things. Like I think maybe you're deciding to ignore, or you're going to be turning a blind eye to just producing a good, solid, rhythmical, controlled groove and learning to control those notes to occur at key moments in the groove. This is how I would approach this now.
I have played Strass bass in ways that it went too far. It ceased to be musical. It was like, look, I'm even wearing a Strass bass shirt. And I'm in my head about it now, honestly. I have a hard time playing Strass bass at all because I recognize that I took it too far. And my focus was on hold, cut, hold. So focused on that it ceased to be music. And in my case, personally.
Yes. Yep, exactly. I think the whole universe is coming around to that as well. Like I think we're maybe coming out of a way overcooked Strass bass style, and I think that you're hearing players just relax a little bit and let it flow. And then we'll use that toolkit that we have to really stretch notes and really cut notes. We're using that more selectively now. Yeah. And I'm of course talking in extreme subtleties, but that's the way I see it.
Sometimes I feel like it has to go that way, at least in personal playing, like when learning a new skill or something like that. Like the pendulum has to swing too far. And then you can go, okay, now I'm going to step back a little bit, and you can find it where it really ought to be. Like I went from not having this tool in my toolkit at all to way overdoing it. And only then can I then like come to a middle spot where I can play it appropriately.
Absolutely. It reminds me of other things too. How tightly should I play my embellishments versus how open I should play them? And yeah, you're always trying things and then correcting for the errors.
What do you think of this, Andrew? My good friend John Charles pointed out a little while ago this observation that I think maybe to me it's been very interesting to think about. That one tool that we have available to us as bagpipers is runs. And he was pointing out examples in pibroch, where if you want to emphasize a note, say you want to emphasize an E, you can't play the E louder, But if you do a little run from A, doodle-doodle-doo, 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 right? That E and then that F sharp and then that E, those are emphasized maybe partly because you ran up to them instead of just playing that note directly.
Sure. Or you play a giant embellishment that basically does the same thing on an A up
Sure.
to E. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Totally.
then what other, I guess what I'm trying to lead you into, Andrew, is like, then give me the secrets. How else can I be expressive on the bagpipes? What tools do I have available to me?
One of the things we talk about a lot in that course is what I call pulsing. So we've got ALAP, ASAP, which is just the treatment of the dot and the cut notes. That's something that you can play with. So remember, we talked about how maybe expression is what you are uniquely adding to the situation. And then the idea of pulsing is we could take a metrical beat pattern, like picture 4/4, played by a metronome with perfectly mechanical clicks happening. But as humans, we could say to ourselves, like, okay, what if we take that expectation that the beats are going to happen perfectly spaced from each other and we tweak those ever so slightly every now and then? That sounds interesting. And I think the idea of the strong first beat in a bar of Strasbourg is a good example of that, right? It's, I'm going to stretch that first beat a micron longer than the other beats to show some emphasis, right? Again, it's just a timing trick. Bagpipers use timing tricks all the time, which is ironic because most pipers have terrible rhythmic accuracy.
We're all allergic to metronomes, aren't we?
Yeah. No, we're not allergic to metronomes. I think that the metronome exposes that you can't actually do it.
Speaking of my good friend John Charles, he put up a video of himself
He
playing
can't
small
do it
pipes.
either.
Yeah,
No, just kidding.
No, but he put up a video
just
the
kidding.
other day where he was playing small pipes with one of the physical metronomes with the swinging arm. And it was really cool because he set up the camera where it's like the camera was right next to the metronome, so the swinging arm would swing into frame in the foreground. And then he's playing, and of course, that looks cool. But also, like, it sounded so groovy. The metronome, which I'm used to hearing other people say and even thinking myself, that's not musical. It's just a click. Like, how annoying. He was playing so in the pocket with that metronome that the metronome was an instrument. It sounded cool. It was like an integral part of this piece that he posted.
Nice.
And that, I thought that was cool. It's on me for being ignorant to this, but I'd never really thought about a metronome being incorporated as a piece of music, as an instrument into a piece of music.
Why not? When you do that, it takes certain expressive possibilities off the table, or at least changes them, right? So you might have to be, if you're not going to be able to swell the first beat of the bar if you're playing with a metronome, which might be,
I see what you mean.
That might be part of the, albeit non-persuasive argument against using metronomes for pipers. But that might be part of the argument, which is, you're taking some of those important expressive things off the table, which I get. But the metronome is, again, we talked about how strong fundamentals are a prerequisite to then deciding to play around with those to produce expression. So the metronome can help us develop good fundamentals when used properly.
For my part, I aspire now to use metronomes the way my friend John Charles does, because that was freaking cool.
Yeah. God forbid you have fun with it, right?
Yeah. Metronomes always sound like a chore to me, but that was just really cool. It's like having an accompanist.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do with a metronome is which, by the way, it's actually a way to develop expression or to test it against reality or whatever. But you start with 4 clicks per bar, or maybe even 8, right? Maybe you're even double timing the metronome and you play your tune or your passage. And then you start subtracting clicks. So if I started with 4, it's like, what happens if I split the metronome speed in half? And now I'm only getting 1 click for every other beat. Can I still stay accurate to that metronome? Right? And then split it in half again. Now I just have the metronome at the beginning of once every bar, right? Can I still meet the metronome exactly on time a full bar later? Do I actually have that rhythmic control? Which, by the way, I'm pretty decent at it.
Well,
it'd be fun.
Good for you, man.
But anyway, you can go all the way down to 1 click per part.
Oh man, that's wild.
Yeah, you have to get a metronome that goes slow enough.
Sure.
But you're basically set to 8.
Or Andrew, you just got to play really fast. One or the other.
Yeah, but there's no visual or anything, right?
Yeah.
Can you meet up with the metronome on time? And by the way, if you can, good for you, but you probably won't be able to at first. And then the question might be, what is it in that material that I'm playing? Where am I leaving? Where am I departing from the beat?
Yeah, I already know that no matter what the piece of music is, it would be somewhere that I'm rushing ahead. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Like, that's always my problem.
You could do it in a digital sequencer as well. You could set up all the layers. right? And then you could mute layers and then record yourself. And then when you get to that and you're not able to meet up with the metronome again, you can then turn on the layer with the more thing, with the more clicks and figure out where you're missing. Man, that sounds fun. I might do that today. But yeah, it can be fun. Anyway, Jim, we have to wrap this up. Expression is what you are bringing to the table, adding your own unique spin to what might just be what's fundamentally expected.
And if I may toss out there an invitation to comment below or send in suggestions and stuff like that, have you encountered other tools for expression that we didn't bring up here today? I'd love to hear what everybody's discovering, just because I'd love to add more tools to my toolbox if possible. You know?
Reverb. Just record it and then turn on the reverb.
Crank it all the way up. Yeah.
I like a little bit of reverb or delay, like a delay pedal can be really cool. Harmonies are great. I think that's one of the reasons I love harmony so much is it can infinitely expand what's possible to do with the bagpipe, right? Is add more stuff in. The drum scores are a great way to express a bagpipe tune.
How dare I talk about how cool it is to play with a metronome when I've played with human drummers before?
Yeah, but what's the difference between a metronome and a human drummer, right? Like a human drummer that has that infinite potential to be expressive. A metronome is just a machine, right? That's probably the key difference.
Yeah. Though at the same time, also another key difference is I have a metronome in my drawer right here that I can take out and use whenever I want. I don't have any human drummers hidden away in cabinets that I can just pull out and say, I'm playing bagpipes now, accompany me. So I guess there's that too.
Yeah. But bagpipers, we do a lot of expression via timing manipulation, right? Because we don't have a whole lot of other tools. The other great tool that we have is our embellishment set.
Yeah.
Our grace note combination. So a lot of times we express by adding rhythmic complexity as well, which again boils down to timing, but it also has, these embellishments have really cool effects. Maybe a little bit of vibrato here and there. It's possible to add, like that sort of pibroch shimmer that people do sometimes, or the little finger thing you were pointing out that gives you that, what would you call it, vibrato or tremolo or something.
Yeah.
You could do that. I don't know. What else am I missing? I don't know. You could add crossing noises in on purpose.
Hey, why not?
But it doesn't quite work. It doesn't really quite hold up at the end of the day, does it? You could play your notes out of tune. You could add in C naturals and F naturals and G sharps and stuff, but you might find that there's certain drawbacks at the end of the day to that, or maybe not. You could play electronic bagpipes, mess around with the sound. I don't know. What else we got?
I do think of reed manipulation to get like that scratchy pibroch high A, for example. Like maybe there are things you could do there that would change.
I probably wouldn't count, and I wouldn't count something that you can't actually affect during a performance. Like that might be where I would draw the line, like what's expression versus what is preparation. I don't know. But I know what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I always enjoy playing around with my garage band.
Oh yeah.
You know, just throw some chords underneath. Like that's a cool thing you could do. But yeah, we'll leave it there for now. The expression. By the way, that course Jim is talking about, it's still cool. And it's still very much in the Dojo U offering of courses because it's still a very useful model and it's something that could be very useful to think about. It's moved to the back of the playbook for me though. I'm way more concerned with developing that rhythmic accuracy and that rhythmic feel and instinctual groove. That's the secret sauce. ALAP, ASAP, and all these ideas fit directly into that. And so that's what we focus on primarily now. Okay. Let's leave it there for today, Jim. Hey, everybody. Andrew Douglas here from the Piper's Dojo, and I just want to say thanks so much for listening to today's iteration of the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, it would be super helpful to us and to a lot of bagpipers out there trying to find us. If you could give us a top-notch review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast, particularly Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and things like that, your review would be really, really helpful. So if you have a moment today, definitely go over there and help us out. Other than that, until we meet again on the podcast or somewhere else, thanks again for listening.